In a video game storytelling context, it's often said that a well-written story needs a conflict between a hero and a villain. But what if the villain doesn't exist? Can a video game story work without a big bad, giving up all the classic narrative tropes present in almost every game? In this video, I analyze some of the most interesting storytelling aspects that I found in To the Moon. Let's dive in. Warning, this video contains major spoilers. I suggest you to play the game before watching. Like they say, forewarned is forearmed. So, let's pretend for a second that we are interested in playing this game, trying to avoid every spoiler. What should we do? If you thought about the concept of premise, you thought right. A premise job is to enclose the foundation of a story in a couple of sentences, bringing out its core idea. It's really the first impact. If you look at the game's Steam page, the premise is right there, and personally I think it's a good one. It doesn't reveal too much, but it sounds intriguing at the same time. You might be wondering why I didn't scroll down, where there's a little synopsis that gives us more information about the story. It shouldn't be very different from the premise, right? Well, it actually is. The premise already gives us all the core points we need to know, without revealing them. Let's analyze it quickly. We can understand that the doctors, our protagonists, have a specific plan in mind. Their strategy will consist in traversing through the patient's memories. So, the call to action has already been answered. Secondly, by this premise, we can figure out the crucial desire of the story, that is John's last wish. Lastly, we can also learn two other things. We know that their patient is dying, and that time is short. This is an obstacle that surely will make reaching the goal harder. We can also guess that, since we'll travel a character's memories, we'll probably come across his ghost, an essential part of his backstory. We can conclude that the triggering event of the story is John's desire. Without it, all the following events wouldn't have happened. The writers here managed to compose an interesting premise that works without any other detail, even if a conflict is not mentioned and the desire is unusual. I'll explain later why it has some unique elements, don't worry. I think we had to analyze the game's premise first, because not only we could understand that the writers knew what they were doing, but also we needed a perspective that is closer to the audience, sparkling our curiosity as if we never played this game before. Now that we acknowledged this premise efficiency, we can finally give a look at our protagonists. The player can control both Eva and Neil, usually switching from one to another. The point of view doesn't influence the plot, but it gives us some insights about how the characters think. They are introduced in a very funny way. Through their dialogues, we can understand that they know each other a lot, but still, this doesn't prevent some bickering. They really don't seem a successful team, do they? Anyways, I'd put them in a safe spot as protagonists. I can't think of either of them as side characters, honestly. Let's talk about Neil first. He's clearly the comedic relief of almost all the story. He's a little bit reckless, and usually he acts as a know-it-all. There are moments when he's the silliest person alive, and moments when he becomes a very cold scientist that doesn't want to get involved in the melodramas around him. He wants to make things done as fast as possible, without empathizing too much with his clients. He will often complain about something. Everything. There are times when you really want to punch him in the face. Sorry Neil, no offense. Eva is definitely the more serious one. She tries to give respect to her clients, without neglecting her impeccable and professional persona. That doesn't mean that she can break free from the cage that she personally built around herself. This is a clear example.
We had another squealer, so let's just kill another one, I guess. Volcanic jumping. I will... Loudest, of course. Your time is on an end, Squealer Goose! Yeah! Sorry!
Yes, I know. The shoe was the obviously right answer. Back to Eva. She's the kind of person that naturally takes the lead in various situations. Also, luckily she's there when someone needs to put Neil in his place, especially when he lets his recklessness run wild. I think that the writers did a good job with them. They're both very memorable. In a story-driven game like this, almost all the fonts of Exposition rely on dialogues. Dialogues let the plot flow, but they also serve as a form of entertainment between climaxes, internal thinking, character development, emotional moments, and so on. By distinguishing all the manners of speaking of the characters, they feel more alive. And if we think about River, John's beloved wife that sadly passed away, this becomes mandatory. Through her non-typical behavior and manner of speech, the writers give us some clues about her condition from the very start. Now then, I think that there's one more protagonist here. Our old John, of course. You'll probably disagree with me, maybe because you consider him more as a side character. But I think he's more than that, for two reasons in particular. Firstly, even if John remains in a medically induced coma throughout all the story, that doesn't mean that we can afford to know him deeply. In a certain sense, we are our memories. They define what we are and what we'll become. I would like to quote a passage that supports this line of thinking. You can find it in Edwin's Mcrae book called Narrative Design for Indies. In the chapter focused on characters, he writes, "We humans are so in love with the very concept of humanity that we expect everything else to be human as well." I think this goes right to the point. Character humanization isn't something new. We can find it in various types of media out there, from anthropomorphed character designs to giving a face to literally everything. So, if we can humanize even a piece of rock, surely we can do it with our John, don't you think? Humanizing John is also very simple, since his memory shows an exact visual representation of him. And of course, when a character is humanized in some sort, it gains an emotive traction for the public, or in this case, the players, not to mention the perceived impact in the story. You probably know that the concept of desire is one of the key structure points in a plot, if not the most significant one. It's what the protagonists try to accomplish with these actions throughout the story. This is why I reserved this explanation for this moment. Desire is not only the starting point, but also the thing that the protagonist cares about the most. Let's play a game. Just open one of the books you recently read and think about the plot. Most of the times, you can easily identify the protagonist's desire. I took as an example the first book of James S. A. Corey's Expanse saga. Don't worry, I won't spoil anything as much as possible. In this book, the two protagonists, Jim Alden and John Miller, have two clear desires. The first one wants to bring justice after he witnessed a tragic event. The second wants to find a missing person at any cost. This is also a perfect example of obsessive drive in a story. The reason why I'm focusing on this subject is because in the vast majority of stories, the protagonist's desire is so crucial that even side characters usually have to align to it in some way, in order to make the story work. This also happens in the example that I previously illustrated. Alden and Miller at some point in the story have to align their goals and share their path, even if their needs couldn't be more different. This is why I cannot conceive John as a side character. Eva and Neil work to accomplish John's primary desire, not theirs. Even if everything seems pointless to us, his last wish is everything to him. I think we explored this concept enough. If you want to know more about desire, I suggest you John Sturby's book called The Anatomy of Story. We now have a crucial aspect to consider. Even if John is a protagonist in my eyes, he surely lacks something that, for obvious reasons, he can't achieve. I'm talking about character development. Neil and Eva do have a chance to grow, and there's a curious aspect about it. If they would have succeeded in their task without any obstacles, there wouldn't have been character development, or even a conflict. It would have been just a work trip, far less interesting for the players. This is why their task could have been simple as the others. The players have to assist to their character growth in some way. That's what makes them interesting. But what about the conflict? If there's no villain, what's the conflict that makes this story compelling? To the Moon relies on its final act to start the conflict. More specifically, it's the moral argument between Eva and Neil. The catalyst is their dispute about how to proceed, after they discovered why some of John's memories were erased, preventing them to succeed in their task. After they fix the traumatic event that brought John into taking beta blockers to forget what happened, they still couldn't reach their goal. there was one more event that prevented John's dream to become true. The second encounter with River in school. Unfortunately, she's the person that held him back, regardless of their sweet love story. The choice is between John's desire and River. In this final climax, something unexpected happens. Watts refuses to tamper with the memory. In his opinion, deleting River would have been the best possible scenario for him. She was a really important part of his life in the end. On the other hand, Eva suddenly wants to stick to the contract, and she's ready to erase her. I think it's a clever twist, cause their parts seem suddenly reversed, with Watts being the more empathetic one and Eva being the cold, cynical one. The two either start to fight, manipulating the memory editor against each other, but eventually Eva manages to strip Neil of his commands. Why this part is interesting, leaving aside the plot? This part works because the Doctor's argument is both the final climax and the conflict of the story, a conflict between two protagonists. The writers managed to combine these two things in one scenario, raising the stakes even more. Personally, I was totally baffled about Eva's decision, but as you can see, I was totally calm and managed the pressure very well.
Oh! 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 No! No! Ah! Ah! No!
Eventually, the player is set to see a sort of bad ending. Yes, maybe changing the events was the right call, but at what cost? The player got to know River very well, and suddenly it's like she never existed. This leads the player to an impactful emotional response. Now, I would like to add something about means of exposition and plot twist. I don't know if you felt the same, but I think the plot twists were pretty effective, and the reason behind it is the emotional build-up that grew stronger minute after minute. Maybe there wasn't anything excessively mind-blowing, but it wasn't really necessary. In retrospection, you can connect the pieces of a puzzle. River's behavior clearly gives us some hints early in the story. Only later we realize about her condition, but the hints are there, scattered in front of us. The same goes with Joy's tragic fate. Why John's mother calls him like his twin brother, why her face is blurred in every single memory, and why John's childhood memories are completely disconnected from the others. The player understands that something is very off in various situations, but especially here. I mean, look at that! Clearly that's not a good sign, right? These little informations are planted or foreshadowed throughout the story, placed in calmer sections where the player is not on alert. Just look closely at Eva here. Did you see? She stares at the bunk bed. She already figured out what happened, and the player has a chance to do the same. I felt so dumb, cause I didn't realize that, even if I walked through that room so many times. This little information is very crucial, a detail hidden in plain sight. And that's exactly the sensation that a player should feel after a plot twist. A good revelation should always be satisfying, in the sense that it should make us reflect about what happened before. It should induce us to think, oh yeah, it all makes sense now. Making the twist believable in some way keeps the player's disbelief strong, so that you don't lose them halfway through. In the game, they planted this huge clue before a very crucial reveal, again in my opinion, a very good craft. And this is even highlighted by a clever UI choice. When you open the pause menu, you can check John's condition, a thing that seems pretty frugal in the flow of the gameplay, but becomes very important in an artist standpoint. It gives the player an urgency feeling. John's happy ending is really in his hands. And the most fascinating thing to me is how we get to empathize with John's desire. We know that most probably he's not gonna make it. We also know that we're just tampering with his memories. Everything seems almost meaningless, temporary. But then, we start to know him better, and everything changes. Through his life memories, we put ourselves in his shoes. We start to understand why that dream is so important to him. Without getting familiar to the player, John's desire wouldn't have been perceived as significant. We realize that every single one of us would definitely care about an happy ending, especially in our last moments, even if nothing is real. Don't worry, as the archivist here, I kept my emotion always in check. Ha ha ha, very funny, my little editor. Don't worry, I get my revenge someday. Mr. Archivist, you edited this video yourself. Shut up! We can conclude that To the Moon doesn't really need a villain. The player becomes like a third doctor that helps Eva and Neil in their difficult task, processing everything that happens in his own way. It creates ludonarrative harmony that in the end, it pays off. A part of me thinks that Neil would have agreed with her if time would have been so limited. In the end, River and John were united, even if a large part of their life together was still cancelled for the greater good. In these fabricated memories, not only John's desire is fulfilled alongside River, but his brother is still alive and well. This story made me realize that being at peace is one of the most desirable things on earth. The world is already hard enough to swallow that a moment of happiness right before the end seems just a good ending to me. Even if I knew that John could really go to the moon, I wished for the best outcome, because in some way his desire became also mine. And I think that a good story does this. It makes the player so emotionally involved that he wants to go forward, for the protagonist's sake. And so, at the very beginning, we can glimpse an elderly couple sitting on that bench. We don't realize right away that this is the happy ending we're gonna chase for all the game. So close and yet so far. Another little example of well-executed foreshadowing. So long, John and River. The ending though doesn't mean the story is finished. The game plants in more than an occasion some hidden details about Neil. He's taking painkillers to keep going, and he's clearly not okay. This scene succeeds in two important things. It works as a vital information and also as a cliffhanger, since this game has a sequel. Secondly, it brings some deepness in an already full-fledged character. It's never too late to do that, even in the last seconds. Well, I think I talked too much. No more babbling, right? What are my personal conclusions? You'll see, we can relax now. I ordered something that I think it represents my experience. Ah yes, Bunny steamed buns, they're perfect! Well, I think this game is a little gem, similar to biscuit treats. In their simplicity, they always give you a warm feeling at the end. The feeling that even a second before lights go out, it's never too late to make a person happy. It usually takes a couple of bites to taste the custard inside, but it's such a sweet taste that you always want more, like this story. You can feel the passion that was behind this project in every single bite. Well, I'll leave you with that. I'm gonna get to work again. If you stayed with me until now, I really thank you. I really hope you like this essay, and if you want to add anything about To the Moon's story, write your thoughts in the comments. Hope we can meet again here, in the Pixelated Archives.